Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of False Starts live from the AKC Andrew Downs studio. Billy Blank, what's up, man?
Yo, I like that new voice of God sounding thing, Andrew.
That's what happens when you bring in. Yeah, that's what happens when you ask a professional to record.
Yeah, you bring somebody in with some chops for some of these ads.
That's right.
Oh yeah, no, that was great. So yeah, how you been since you weren't with us last time?
I wasn't at a Wee Will event, by the way. I was at a work event. I put on an awards ceremony for my job. So you know what? I rebooked a therapist today, and not because I feel like I'm feeling sad. I have not went back since I started this new job, just because I've just been kind of working. And
you were cured because you were all cured. Everything.
Well,
it's all about the job.
Nope. But as I was thinking last week, I was thinking, you know what? I haven't seen him. I still should go and check in and still have those conversations.
Yeah, I think I always say it's very important, I think, to go when you feel good.
Yeah.
Not just,
I made another appointment and get back on track. So part of it was he couldn't be like, I couldn't go after work, and I worked till 5. But now that I've been there long enough and people know me, I can slip out at like 3:30 or whatever and go see this therapist. So it's all good.
Like, hey, I gotta go get my head shrunk.
That's right. If you want me on my best behavior, I gotta go talk to a therapist.
And I would encourage you as well to even be open about that. Like you obviously whatever you prefer, but like I always make it a point when I'm around people to talk about the fact that I go to therapy. Like if it comes up, somehow,
it doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, like, I just as it will help other people in your workplace maybe feel more comfortable with it. Because I remember, like, going to therapy as a kid, I used to say, like, I would say that I had a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
But, like, now I say, like, oh yeah, I have therapy. I got to go to therapy.
I told you I did that retreat at church in February. And part of that was as I stood up, I gave a little bit of a speech after Mass, inviting men to want to go to this retreat. And part of that discussion was me talking about how I've had a rough couple of years mentally and things like that. And I'm looking for some peace. And a gentleman came up to me after that, and I had known him a little bit. And we've texted probably off and on a couple of days every week since then. He booked his first therapy appointment last week.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice to, I mean, not that I had anything to do with it, but kind of what we've talked about here. If we're talking about it and they get something
normalizing it, you
Yep,
know, it's that's really what it's about. And that's probably the perfect time to bring our guest on. This is a person who I wanted to have as a guest for a long time because he's a lot like me in that people from the outside looking in would expect that we probably wouldn't be the type to go to therapy or be open about it. And, we're also really open books kind of publicly at any given time and have never really cared. There's no sacred cows, I guess, between the two of us. But This is the guest I wanted to have in Mental Health Month. It's perfect because our guest tonight is a very open and honest person, and I couldn't think of anybody better for the month of May. So let's welcome Travis Justice of KXNO Morning Rush fame, along with the what is the fucking Benedict Arnold podcast you do?
Yeah, I do a Nebraska podcast called Talk with Dr. Rob Zadiska, who's one of my really, really good friends. We go back to 2001, maybe, in broadcasting. And when I retired from broadcasting from full-time broadcasting in 2010, him and I had been doing television for almost 10 years. We're like, let's just keep this going. And if you listen to the podcast, a lot of people think I'm Benedict Arnold, but if you listen to the podcast, I talked about Iowa.
Talk a lot of shit, probably.
I talk. So I do have to ask you guys a question. So I can swear on this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Yes,
no wonder you two are fucking depressed all the time, because I mean, look at your surroundings. Shipley's got a fucking shower curtain behind him, and Blank is like Buffalo Bill out of Silence of the Lambs with this little curtain and a window by the side. Send down the bucket. Give me the lotion. Look at me. I've got this little light coming on me, bald spot. Makes me look like Jesus, right? I mean, I've got this little halo coming out of it.
Was she a great big fat person? Wait.
Give me the lotion.
That's my favorite at the fucking door. Like, oh no, I don't know. Well, are you sure, sir? But oh wait.
Is that great big fat pig?
Was she a great big fat person?
So what's going on, fellas? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on, Travis.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and
I do got to clarify. If you listen to the Morning Rush, this is not my regular studio. I really have a nice studio downstairs. I was flooded a couple weeks ago with massive amounts of water that destroyed my entire basement. So this is I normally have microphones kind of like you guys. I don't really wear a headset a lot, but now I'm in my kitchen. And my wife just loves me taking up all her space in her kitchen.
I have gone through that as well. I was when it happened before. I was still married, and I was on the road. I was in Florida when it happened. So my ex-wife at the time pretty much had to deal with all of it. But she worked in insurance, so she got shit going really fast. And so it was in your case. Was it because what happened with us was a whole bunch of rain at once, and the storm sewers and stuff couldn't keep up with it. So it was sewage that backed up for us. So we had to get everything stripped and
that's
all
nasty.
that. Did you have to?
No, mine was a water main break at my meter, so it was clean water all the way throughout. I came downstairs. Good. I had the largest basement swimming pool in Omaha, Nebraska. Is what I did. I mean, it was crystal clear, man. I sent a picture to Ross the morning it happened because it looks like you epoxied your floor. I had like 9 inches of epoxy on my floor, was just gleaming. But the problem was that it happened, and 2 days later I had to leave for New Orleans for my daughter's college graduation. You get back and realization hits you, and you're like, you're just overwhelmed. I mean, my wife started bawling when she got back here. To me, I've never had anything like this happen to me before, so I'm not processing it very well because I feel kind of lost because I don't know what to do. Somewhat helpless because you get the ServPro people, sorting your stuff out, telling you what's salvageable and what's not salvageable. You got an insurance guy saying, well, we're not going to pay for that. Why not? It's no good. So I don't really know how to handle it. And luckily my wife,
On top of all
definitely do not let the insurance company tell you any fucking thing.
No, and they keep telling me he's a good adjuster, and he's been good so far. So, hey, listen, they gave me about 50% up front, so they sent me money right away, so I was able to cover some bills. But and I can't imagine what that ServPro bill is. Those are the guys that came in and did everything.
Do the cleaning, basically, and that's what had to happen here. But I had it to where like they had to saw off the 3 feet high.
Yep.
Or whatever on my
you
walls.
Had shit on the wall.
Yeah, because I had shit on the wall, 100%. That's kind of what this podcast is: throw shit at the wall, see if it sticks.
Usually, we know we're off the rails when Billy starts talking about shrooms.
Hey, you did it first this week.
I know.
And you know what's funny?
I'm just warning the audience.
The last show you weren't there, and I swear to God, I didn't talk about shrooms.
I know. I listened to the whole thing.
I've never done the psychedelics. My wife wants to do the shrooms. And
I think you absolutely should.
In a microdose, though, right? I mean, she shouldn't just like take a handful and shove them down her mouth.
No, I would microdose. Like, I prefer at this point in my life, like back in the day, like in college when I first ate shrooms, like for the first time and all that, like we would eat like a whole half an eighth or maybe even an eighth, which
I don't do math, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so an eighth is basically 3.5 grams.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I don't do the metric system.
So if you think of an ounce, right? I know you don't do the metric system, but you know what an ounce is.
Sure. 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 3 ounce.
Yeah, you have an idea of how much an ounce is, right? So think of it in terms of weight.
Yeah.
You know, how much does an ounce of anything weigh, right? And so, 3.5 grams of it is an eighth of an ounce. So
it's not very much then.
Well, it is though, because they don't weigh anything.
Okay.
So like they're very light and they're dry. And so like that's an eighth of, if you ate a whole eighth of shrooms, you're having a good time for a while. Like, but you're like an eighth, you're tripping your balls off. Like, so I would say that you don't want to do anything in like you don't want to be in public if you ate that much, and you want to be around other people who also ate shrooms. You don't really want to be around.
I don't want to be in public when I'm not high. And by the way, this sounds really weird. I've never been a drug guy, right? I'm not even a drinker that much. I've smoked pot like twice in my life. Now the gummies are a different story. I like the gummies.
Yeah.
But I use them to go to sleep. If I know I'm going to have a hard time sleeping, I don't take them for shits and giggles. I'm like, I know I'm going to have a hard time getting to sleep tonight. I'm going to pop a gummy about 2 hours beforehand, and then I sleep like a baby. My favorite drug is NyQuil. I mean, if you were to ask me what my favorite drug is, NyQuil it knocks everything out of the park. I mean, I have lucid dreams. I fall asleep real quick. I wake up without a hangover. It's beautiful. I love
you and fucking Kenny Pratt or
yeah,
whatever.
There's a name from the past.
Okay, so here's something. I have read and heard a lot of talk about lucid dreaming in terms of mental health, right?
Yeah.
I know that they've done some studies, or they've tried to do a lot of it with like PTSD. Guys have returned from war or whatever, and they're having bad dreams and stuff, and like training, to lucid dream, which from what I've vaguely studied, because I got into it for a minute, and because to me, like that would be the best thing ever. Like that, being able to control your dreams would be better than any drug on planet Earth. Like all you would want to do is sleep.
Isn't that called? Wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio in that movie called Inception? Wasn't that kind of what that was? Here's the problem with my sleep. I got one of these fancy little watches that monitors my sleep, and I rarely remember my dreams because I only get about 4.5 hours of sleep a night. So I'm about a 4.5 hour, 5 hour sleeper. So I don't get enough deep sleep to really get into the dream. So the only time I remember when I dream is when I do the NyQuil, and I don't want to get addicted. So I every once in a while I'll look for I got to take some NyQuil.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. But I don't have many vices.
Like, see, to me, that would be amazing though. Like if every night you go to sleep knowing that you can just fly to the bunny ranch and bang supermodels in your dream, and it just feels real as fuck. You just know.
Did you hold your hand up for a reason?
No, I'm just saying, like, it's,
you can fly to the bunny ranch every day, any time of the day.
In real life, it'll cost you a lot of money if you just do it in your dreams. Well, yeah, I mean, but like, I don't know. I guess sometimes I think about it in those terms. Like I've seen, like there's VR porn now. I have an Oculus. I've seen the VR porn.
Hold on. Have you done VR porn? You've done
I've
VR
totally
porn?
watched VR porn. Oh yeah.
Is it realistic?
Dude, okay. I have sort of a bit about it on stage. It's never really.
I've only seen you once, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's never really gone to where it's not a finished product type of bit yet. But anyway,
I thought he was talking about the porn.
So
I thought Chris, I'm right with you. I'm like, what?
Friend of mine.
It's not a finished product. That's the whole point of porn.
I have an Oculus, and a friend of mine at one point was like, "Have you seen the porn on that?" And I was like, "Oh, there's porn," And I thought, because I've been on the road for 20 plus years. So I've seen the porn. I've seen it all.
Does Pornhub offer that for free?
I can't remember. I haven't turned it on in like 2 years, but I'm trying to remember what the name of the site was that I went to. I can't even remember the name of it anymore. Damn it. What was that called?
I'll Google it for you.
There's a whole bunch of them, and Pornhub does have a VR tab, I think, or whatever. Because you just go into it with the browser.
Yeah.
There's quite a few. I'll just let you know.
Yeah. And so I thought it would just be the regular porn that you watch, but it would just be up close.
Yeah.
But no, it's done from first person point of view.
Oh.
And she's right there. Like it's so like, I've got a girlfriend now. I've been divorced now for 4 years now, almost 5 years. So if I didn't have a girlfriend right now, I would say that I was probably like, if this doesn't work out, I'd say I'm probably a fleshlight and a subscription away from never having a girl again.
Do you have an OnlyFans account? Do you have an OnlyFans? You have an OnlyFans account?
No.
All right.
No, I don't have any of that shit. All that shit seems pathetic to me. Like, porn's bad enough, but I'm not gonna pay for and I don't remember the last time I jerked off to porn.
Really?
I got a good spank bank. Like a lot of times I can just do it. I can just do it out of my brain. Like I honestly
you gonna hurry or something?
Well, it's not like I'm lighting candles and making a night of it. I mean,
I like it to be.
Do you do that? Do you have a program?
I like
soft music.
I like I like candles. Make it romantic. All sorts.
That scene from 40-Year-Old Virgin.
That's right.
Oh my God, dude! Yeah, that's a bang boom pow. Let's get out of here deal. Like, just got to rub one off. I don't know. Did you use that? When you were a teenager, like when you first started jerking off, like, do you remember the first time you jerked off?
I'm trying to think.
Oh God.
Yeah, I do.
Because I remember it. Because I remember at
How
that
do you
age.
remember that?
You don't remember the first time you jerked off? That's the first nut. That's the first nut.
I do not remember. There's so many of them are just jumbled into one.
Do you remember the first time you got laid?
Yes,
that I do. Losing your virginity?
Yes.
How do you not remember losing your hand virginity?
I don't know. Because it was so long.
You don't remember the world opening up that moment?
No, I remember having immense guilt. That's what I remember.
Yeah, poor Catholic kid.
I wasn't even Catholic then.
Never had guilt.
So
I don't now.
But see, when I was that age, everybody made fun of it.
Oh yeah,
your friends and stuff made fun of jerking off.
Well, I tell you what, it's funny that you say this because what bothers me about where I'm going to go here is that of all the times that you do that when you're a kid, what happened was when I was in high school, the girl that I was dating at the time, who I lost my virginity to, went to school and said she looked at my back window and I was twisting one off, and I wasn't. And so she went to school and told everybody, right? And so I became this. I mean, I don't like the word bullying because, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I guess you could say I was bullied because of it. And then I showed up to school one day and there's Vaseline all over my locker, and they took I mean that's bullying.
Shit that didn't actually happen. I remember that.
And that's what I said. I said if I was actually doing it, I would have owned up to it. You guys, I mean, I would have owned up to it. I'm like, I wasn't doing it that night. I wasn't. And I go, you just went to school and told
you just made some shit up.
Yeah. And that messed me up for a long time. I went in the hospital. It wasn't long because I had a bunch of stuff out there going after that. I ended up in a mental institution for 2 weeks, not long after.
Really?
Yeah, I've been hospitalized.
See, I love that you bring that up because I distinctly remember those kind of stories as a kid where there was a kid we just decided was the weird kid. And then somebody, and not to say that they had decided you were the weird kid in this instance, but the kid that like, hey, so and so was jerking off in the back of the bus on the band trip. So and so saw him, and then they repeat the story and they say that they actually witnessed it, even though they didn't. So they sound credible, and then it snowballs into whatever, and then it's true. It might as well be fucking true.
The interesting part about that is the story lives on forever. And because, I was on television in the Omaha market, which included my hometown for about, 20 years, 25 years. And every time, and I don't go home that much because every time I go back, I feel like people are really?
The news fucking got caught jerking off. Yeah.
It's crazy how that stuff. But I had a bunch of stuff going on in my life as that was going on, which is a hard time. That 16, 17-year-old, that's a hard time.
Sure.
Yeah, I was hospitalized probably, it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month after that. So it was.
This was during the school year?
Yeah, it was during the school year. I mean, they smothered my locker in Vaseline, filled a condom up with milk. I mean, just mean shit. But
wow.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember
I would constitute that as bullying. I would definitely.
Yeah, but Chris, I don't like the word because I think it's overused sometimes.
It feels more like hazing, maybe.
No, I absolutely
more than.
I think it's overused as well.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I haven't let that define who I am as a person or who I was as an individual, right? I'm like, sure, that was just some mean shit. I know who did it, and I don't talk to those people anymore, right? I mean, my life's turned out pretty darn good. Not saying I don't have issues; I got plenty of them, but it's I didn't let that define who I was going to be as a person. I'm just like, whatever,
Well, and that's where. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm curious. Getting hospitalized. I know you've mentioned a few times you had a contentious relationship with your father.
Yeah.
Things like that. So, who initiated that hospital? Was that something that you said I really need to go? Was it your parents?
I got to set the story up. So if you want the whole story, I'll give it to you. I mean, because I still remember the night like it was yesterday. But so you got to understand when it comes to mental illness, and this is just my own personal opinion. I'm not a doctor. This is what I think. I think you have true chemical imbalance to where that bipolar stuff hits in. But I would say a lot of us that suffer what I would call mental illness is traumatization. Right. I mean, it's learned behaviors. It's what you saw. It's how you just got messed up. And, I lived in a pretty decent family for the most part. I mean, I was pretty upper middle class. My 3 older brothers were gone by the time I was in 4th or 5th grade. So I consider myself kind of an only child, and I didn't see a lot of the stuff that was going on in my household until I went on a date with a girl from Trainer, Iowa. I come home one night and my mom is beat to a pulp. I mean, just absolutely beat to a pulp. And I had you got to remember, I'm the starting quarterback of the football team. I play basketball. I'm a starter on the basketball team. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, he'd taken her, thrown her down, taken a loaf of bread, tried to choke her with it, and she had him arrested that night. And it rocked my world. I mean, because I'd never seen that. And then I come to find out that it had been going on for years. My mom had told me that, the first time she had a baby, she went to my oldest brother. She was in the hospital with bruises, and so you start finding this stuff out, and it just messes you up, just totally messes you up, right? And so I went crazy. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't talk to my dad after that. He never apologized. He tried to come to see me in the hospital, or he did try to come see me in the hospital, but I got to get to how I got to the hospital. And it was probably 6 or 7 months after that. We hadn't talked, and stuff starts going on. And my brother was in the Marine Corps, and he brought home some samurai swords from when he was overseas. And I remember I walked out and I picked up one of the swords that he got in the Philippines. And I swear to God, hand to heaven, I was going to kill him. I had the sword in my hand, and I was going to kill him because he was sleeping on the couch. And you just sit there with that, and stuff's going through your brain, and you're like, you know what? It ain't worth it. I need to go get some help. I remember walking upstairs telling my mom, I got to go. I got to get some help. I was just had this stuff going through my head. And I'll never forget this. We get in the car. We're driving into St. Joe's, right? St. Joe's is the mental institution in Omaha. And we show up. And they're like, we're full. I'm like, what? We're full. We're full. So I end up in the McDermott ward at Mercy Hospital in Council Bluffs. And I spent 2 weeks there. What I learned about being in a mental institution and a hospital was I wasn't as fucked up as I thought I was. There was some messed up people.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a story, right? And I'm not saying my story is any worse than anybody else, but I'm sitting there going, oh, you got it bad. You got it bad. You got it bad. Sure. And I'm like, okay, I can go home now. They're like, no, you're here for 2 weeks, buddy. You're here for 2 weeks. So I spent 2 weeks, a good 2 weeks away. My dad tried to visit me in the hospital. It was really weird. We'd reconciled for a little bit, but our relationship did not end well by any means. So it's, that's my story of being hospitalized, Chris. That's how I got there. And I talk about it. I've never told the story on the radio about the samurai sword because I think that's a little bit too much, maybe.
Sure.
It needs to be something like this where you can have a free-flowing conversation. But
I appreciate that.
I think if you guys, I share a lot of this stuff on the radio, and I don't know if our program directors like it or not, but what Ross and I both find is when I do share these stories, you have a lot more in common with people than what you think. Everybody's got a story.
Travis, it's funny you say that because as you were telling that story, I was kind of in the same situation with my siblings. All of my siblings were older, and I was probably 7, 8, and I was with my mom and dad exclusively after that.
Yeah.
So, and you and Ross do a really good job of mixing in, sports and whatever and stuff
whatever.
It's
right. But you're right.
But things that make us feel like we're your friends and care about you.
Yeah. And all I want to do is here's the deal. I don't go to therapy anymore. I haven't been to therapy in a long time. The last time I was in therapy, I think, was marriage counseling, probably about 17, 18 years ago. But
shit, I thought you went to therapy all the time.
No, here's the deal, Bill. I don't, because the radio show is my therapy.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. I think I get my best therapy from the radio show, that I can go on, tell my stories, talk about it, have Ross there to jab with me. I get a text from you, every morning if something like. So I do find that to be a therapy session, and then the private messages that come in after that. And if I'm able to, give some advice, or at least, hey, I'm thinking about you, don't want to bring you down. That to me is therapy. If you have a group of friends and a community that supports you, that's the best therapy you can have. So I don't go to a doctor anymore. I haven't for a long time. And as my wife used to say, I used to bullshit the
therapist.
The therapist. Yeah. I could bullshit a therapist like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. That's the hard part, and that's when it's not beneficial. So you might as well not go. Because you can sometimes with a therapist, you can feel like you're being judged. As if you're open, you can feel like they've got these kind of judging eyes looking at you, or maybe they're writing shit down while you're telling a story or whatever.
Are you saying I'm crazy? Are you saying
like, but see, the thing that I like to have it all. I'm like you. I'm open with my friends. Everybody, you know, I've never hidden anything that's going on in my life most of the time.
That's why you went on stage, by the way. That's why you went on stage.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you were to go to most radio guys and most TV people, including the female reporters, you scratch the surface a little bit, they're fucked up. I mean, it's just, I'm not kidding. I guarantee, but most of them don't want to talk about it because that's their I would
facade.
Almost say a lot of, it's not a facade. It's just how they drive their creativeness. Right. I mean, I would, why are actors so messed up? Why are people, are creatives so tortured? I think that the pain in some way drives that creativeness.
It comes from self-doubt. It just comes from like a constant stream of self-doubt.
Oh, I think that's spot on.
Yeah.
Here's what I worry about the most is that my dad passed away about a year ago. So just so everybody knows, I didn't speak to my dad for 23 years. Never spoke to him before he died. Didn't go to his funeral. I did, however, it's funny. I pulled some strings. I did. Well, I didn't want to be there with my brothers. So I haven't talked to two of my brothers in 25 years now. It'll be 25 years in July. And so I called the funeral home and I said, "Hey, this is me. I didn't want to go, do you know who I am?" But they knew who I was.
Yeah.
I said, "Here's the deal. I haven't talked to him for 23 years. I need the room by myself and my wife, and I want to come over and do a private visitation. That's all I want to do." Okay. So they said, "Here's the deal. We're going to close at this time. You can come in and you can say your goodbye." So I went over there. I did that. Got a little closure that way. But that son of a bitch got me in the grave. That son of a bitch got me in the grave. Did you? Have I told the story on the radio? I don't know if I've told it.
I haven't heard it.
I haven't heard
it. I tell you what, I have been. This messed me up more than probably anything because it probably took me 11 years to come to grips with that I wasn't going to talk to my dad again. So he never saw two of my kids, but he only saw Owen once when he was a baby. So he didn't really see any of his grandchildren, which was tough to come to terms with. But I thought if I wanted to break the cycle of dysfunction, if I wanted to break the cycle of crazy, you have to stay away from crazy. Right. Yeah. So Tammy Pescatelli does a great bit about just, the crazy. Don't embrace the crazy, because if you embrace the crazy, you're just enabling it. So my wife and I made a conscious decision to say, we're not going to embrace the crazy. We're going to stay away from it. But it took me about 10, 11 years to really get over it. Like, oh, okay, this is really going to happen. I think like in year 10, we sent him a family picture to see if he would reach out. Didn't happen. I thought that I was kind of extending an olive branch without making the phone call, right? It was like, here are your grandkids if you want to see them. Here's a picture of what we look like now. Never heard from him. So then he passes away. I do the private thing. I don't go to the funeral. And this bothered me. I don't know how you guys would bother me, but my mom called me and she's like, "Hey, your dad left you in the will." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay. That's really cool." Yet your brothers were thinking that you should give the money to them. It gets better. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to. I go, "Mom, I think at the end of the day, when he passed away, maybe he came to terms with it. Maybe he understood me. He understood it was probably best that we weren't around each other, right?" Dude, you know what he did? He left me 1%. And that hurts more because as I told my wife, I said I would have much rather had it be zero. I was prepared for nothing. I was prepared, and it wasn't about the money. It was about the 1%. Right?
It was the message. It was the message that he sent you.
He sent me a message from the grave that I'm 1%, and so I went batshit for like 6 months because everybody was kind of surprised how well I was doing. And then when the 1% came, I'm like, that messed me up. And so this is where I want. I start going, okay, he had the balls to give me 1% and send a message, but then still puts me on his headstone. So if you go see his headstone, my name's on there. So I want so I'm now trying to get my name off the headstone. And my mom's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't want to be on the headstone. If I said, I want my name covered up, or I want to put 1% behind my name.
Yeah. Or 1% of your name.
Yeah. I'm 1%. If I'm only worth 1%, and again, it wasn't about the money. It was like, man, you just called me 1% of a son.
Right.
And listen, I wasn't a great son to him, and he wasn't a great father to me. I wish he wouldn't have even put me in the will. I didn't expect to, because I sure as hell didn't expect to. And then,
when did the 23 years begin? Did it begin the moment you picked up the sword?
No. The 23 years began, believe it or not. We'd reconciled after that. Listen, my dad was just as mentally ill as in the same way that I am from a learned traumatic behavior. Right?
Was he a drinker?
He was an alcoholic. And it didn't start until Owen was born. So Owen would be 25. I'm the only kid to go to college. He paid for, I never had any college debt. He paid for everything for me to go. I went to Grandview. I just get checks every quarter, and he'd go pay your tuition. So he paid all my tuition. I know he was extremely proud that I went to college. I think he was pretty honored that I was on television and was doing something. But that creativeness, I always felt I was motivated to please him. Does that make sense? I was always, what drove me from a career standpoint was, okay, I need to please him no matter what. I need to show him that I can make it. And I think I did that up until I had closure. And the closure happened even before he passed away. But I would say that my motivation career-wise is gone. I from a career, like I was like, I want to be on, I want to keep moving up markets. I want to do this. And then when the closure hit, you're like, oh, am I still motivated to be on television? Am I still motivated to do radio? I think I'm still motivated to do radio every day because I get to do it on my terms. But the wanting to please all the time and try to get some kind of gratification from him was what drove me and motivated me to be the best at what I was in my field. Now I've kind of had to adjust and find different things to motivate me, but that was the big motivator. That's why I look at comics. I look at TV anchors. I look at actors. I look at artists. I look at musicians, and I'm like, man, a lot of people are tortured souls because that's where the best stuff comes from. It really comes from that stuff. It's weird because
parentally, everything was fine. My issues all probably were with my mom at different times, but outside of that, it was just more my dad. My dad wasn't the type to say I love you or I'm proud of you.
Yeah, either was
like
mom.
He just didn't say the words. I think it made him uncomfortable at some point. Like, he was very affectionate when I was little. I remember us being like more affectionate than most people up until, like, I want to say somewhere in junior high. I feel like maybe it made him more uncomfortable, or he was trying not to embarrass me, or who knows. But
the interesting thing about cutting somebody off, and this is where trauma still affects me today. And Chris, unfortunately, you're on the receiving end of this. Is that, and I don't mean this in a mean way, is that I'm a loyalist, right? I have a very small group of people around me. If I let you in, I demand loyalty, right? And if you cross me in any way, you're dead to me. You're just really dead to me. I'll be cordial to you, but I'm never going to let you in again. And I'm never going to really open up to you because I can't trust you. So I have major trust issues. That's why I have 3 friends in my life, and Ross Peterson is one of them. Todd Bailey in Des Moines is another one, and that's about it. And if you think about that, it's kind of unique because those friends are 100 miles away from me. So so it's like a distance, but I trust them. And I tell them stuff that I don't tell anybody else, or I can call them. But I don't have any high school friends that I hang out with. I went to college with Todd Bailey. Otherwise, I have acquaintances that I hold at arm's length, and I just don't trust people. And I've come to terms with that. I can live with that. I'm happy with that. I'm not really close with my mom anymore. I probably had some mommy issues for a long time, and that we were almost too good of friends. And then my brothers and I were never close. And I don't talk to two of them now, and I never will again. And I'm okay with that. And I think my kid, what I was worried about is screwing my kids up. Right. And I did enough to screw my kids up. And I have 4 wonderful children who I think are extremely talented. And they're creatives, and I encourage them to do their own thing. And I tell them I love them every day. I try to make sure that they know they're loved in this family, but I think I'm sure they have questions. They've never really asked me, but I think they've seen enough now. They're like, okay, I understand what Dad did there. And I think Anjanette, my wife, has done a really good job of saying, hey, we kind of took you away from the crazy, but I still have trust issues. And that's why I don't reach out to a lot of people, which is weird, right? With the morning show, when I invite that community and I share stuff with people, I don't mind doing that because that's my therapy. But when people meet me for the first time, they're like, well, you're not like that. You're nothing like you are on the radio. Well, I'm not doing a show right now, right? And yeah. I trust this microphone probably than I trust more people. I mean, this is it's just kind of who I am.
Well, Travis, let me jump in here real quick, Bill, because I'll just address the elephant in the room real quick here. I respect that. I respect what you said. I understand it. I did do something wrong. I sent you an apology. I don't know if you read it.
I read it, and I'm like.
But I understand where you're coming from, and I respect it. So
yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm pissed at you. It's just because even Bill's like, you got to give Chris a break. I'm like, it is what it is.
But I was man enough to admit that I was wrong.
You did. I'll give you that. I will give you that.
I don't think we're going to be best friends. That's fine. But I respect you, and I think you do a great job, and I'm a fan of yours.
Well, so. here's what I think I'm good at, or is that, and Ross has taught me this morning thing, is politics can mess a lot of things up. Oh, right. And the way, and I hate this attitude now to where you have to pick a team to be on. And if you're not on my, and this is straight from Ross Peterson's mouth. If you're not on my team, you're dead to me. Well, yeah. I don't view life like that. And
I don't either. I hate that shit.
And the truth is, more people need to live in people make fun of small towns. They do. They make fun of small towns. They're hicks. You're too conservative. You live out on the farm. Some of the best stuff I've ever seen is you go to the local coffee shop in Minden, Iowa, where the farmers are sitting there. You've got farmers that are Democrats. You got farmers that are Republicans. They sit there and they fight. They argue. And then they go to their fields and come back the next day and say, hey, Jim, hey, Bob, how you doing? And they start all over again. It doesn't get personal. It's too much stuff is just personal now. Social media's done it. And don't get me wrong. I probably take stuff a little bit too personal. But Chris, I think with us, and I even forget what the story, how it started, right? If you would have just come to me privately and said, hey, dude, you've crossed a line with me. I can't listen to you. If I remember correctly, it happened on Twitter and stuff. I'm like, really? You're going to do it online? Really? And I get it. But it's just one of those things where I don't tweet a lot because I don't think you can have a civil conversation. Ooh, where'd Chris go? Did I piss him off?
Yeah, you must have just.
Did I piss him off? I
don't know. Something must have shut off or something. There he is. What happened?
Internet access. Thank God for a hotspot.
Well, man, I was like, geez.
I'm sure what you said was super nice. I'm sure you.
No, but what I.
I missed the whole fucking thing.
I don't tweet or get into conversations on Twitter a lot because you can't have a civil and conversation and read body language, hear inflection, hear intention, and that's why I go, you know what, I'm just going to save it for the radio. I'm going to bring it up on the radio because I think it's a good enough topic to talk about. Save it for a podcast like this. And you can have discussions where you may disagree, but at least you might be able to come to some kind of common ground. Because I think if most people would have a decent discussion, that they could find common ground. I mean, if somebody says, well, I like the line from Ted Lasso, the be curious one. Remember when he's playing darts? He's like, nobody was just curious. I'm curious about people. I think I'm a really good interviewer. I love to interview people. And I know some people, when they listen to me talk to even celebrities or coaches, are like, how can you ask those questions? I'm like, because I don't care.
What I want to know.
Yeah, I go, I don't care about X's and O's. In a way,
I want to know how your brain works.
Yeah, that's why when Mark Farley comes on, we're always talking about, are you going deer hunting? What'd you do?
Yeah.
He tells us great stuff. To me, you get to know the person, then you kind of understand what makes that motor tick, right? If you get to understand what makes the motor tick, you're able to understand a little bit, and you're like, okay, I get you. I understand you. I know where you're coming from. So that's why I share my stories, so people at least know how I think, how I tick. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just saying let's have a civil conversation in some of this stuff.
Well, there's no growth in surrounding yourself with nothing but like-minded people.
Oh, it's tribalism.
I make it a point. Like, I know for a fact you and I probably disagree politically on a shit ton of things.
I think we'd also be. I'll be honest. I'm a libertarian, right? I'm an old. I'm probably I grew up a Reagan Republican, and for many good reasons. My dad's business flourished under Reagan. I watched my dad invest. I watched my dad build a small business. I watched him really grow under the Reagan administration. Listen, I voted once for Bill Clinton. I voted for Barack Obama. I vote for Democrats here. I don't like this. You have to pick one team and just.
I don't either. I hate it. Yeah.
But it's just the same way on the other side, right? You have Democrats who no way I'm going to vote for Republican. Why not? Have you really? Is it just because you're told not to? So I think my voting record, but now the way it is now, I've just kind of turned libertarian, and that is, if you want to smoke your weed, if you're gay, whatever, I don't care. Just give me my money. I want my money. Stop taking my money.
And I've always been.
I just found out I'm a libertarian as well.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
how quick was that?
If that's what you boil it down to, like I've been registered libertarian for a long time. But I always switch back and forth if I wanted to caucus one way or the other.
Yeah, see, we don't have the caucus system here. So
yeah. And so, but my thing, I hate the two-party system. I'm the same way. I think as long as you're not hurting anybody, you should do whatever you want. And I would like to keep my money. But there's been more. I think I'm more liberal than most libertarians. So I don't feel, because I'm a lot more like a lot of libertarians are pro-life, and I'm pro-choice. But they seem to stand on certain things that I'm not. There's some things that just associate. Like a lot of times, like when you think libertarian, I think most people, they think like what's his name?
Ron Paul
and Ted Nugent.
Oh,
like I always thought Ron Paul. I love Ron Paul. But I think people think more Ted Nugent or these batshit crazy fuckers.
Well, I tell you, every libertarian party rally that I've been to, I'm surprised that it's like stoners, right?
Yeah.
You're like, really? I never would have thought that, right? I mean, if you go to a libertarian get together, you're like, huh? I bet you guys think I'm like a
square.
Yeah. Well,
we need to put you out front.
Here's the funny. You know who my idol was growing up, right? It was Trump, because I read Art of the Deal. If you go look at my senior picture, I got his exact suit and exact tie. So but Trump wasn't Trump in 1989.
Right.
And I could make the argument. This is going to blow a lot of people's minds. I could make the argument that Trump's a Democrat. The way he spent money, and he's a New York Democrat. I mean, he is. That's what's crazy, But you mentioned that you're seeing a lot of different people in the Libertarian parties because there's a ton of Republicans who don't know where to go right now. There's no home. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, if you're a Republican, you're bad." I'm like, no, there's a lot of people who are just fiscally conservative who don't want to be in debt. I mean, the national debt right now is horrible. I mean, they're going to come collect bills here pretty quick, right? And we're going to pay for it. But I want my money. I want my money.
And that's, I know you've seen me do this bit about like rocks being currency, and that's what just kills me about the whole monetary system in general. We just made it all up. It's all just fucking made up.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just decide it's something else? Like the fact that it costs it's
called crypto.
Yeah. and that's and then like 7 cents now. Like I think it costs 7 cents to make a nickel. I mean, just really stupid shit. Like, why are we even fucking around like that?
Yeah, you can get rid of most coins, right? I mean, do we need a penny anymore? I mean, think about it. Do we really need the penny? And in most places don't even take cash anymore, which just blows my mind away.
Yeah,
Who doesn't take cash? I want to go. If you don't take cash, you're a bad business person.
You're not buying anything at the concession stand then.
No,
they won't take cash.
But I remember, like, for the longest time, businesses that were and there's still a few around in my neighborhood even that are still, cash only. But I remember going to like the Highland Park Bakery, 10 years, 15 years ago, and being like, would you guys get up with the 20th century? I want to come and get donuts with my card. I don't carry hardly any cash anymore. And now people are going cashless, and I'm like, no, you don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, if you go to a comedy club and let's say Colleen says, "Hey, Bill, we're going to pay with cash tonight," you're saying what? Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah.
My old man ran his store, and there was 2 prices: a regular price and a cash price.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes that cash didn't end up in the actual cash register.
Though, you know what bugs me now and it makes me go crazy, and I know you guys want to get more into mental health, and we can get back there, but I don't like businesses. I owned a coffee shop for 7 or 8 years. It was a drive-through, and we took credit cards, and credit card fees are a bitch, man. I mean, they are expensive, but I always said taking credit cards was the price of doing business. It was. Sure. I mean, that I don't like it now that every time I go into a restaurant or somebody like, hey, if you use your credit card, you're going to be charged an extra 2.5%.
Yes.
No, just do your 2.5% on the menu, man, because don't tell me that I'm getting penalized for using my debit card.
Which that's supposed to be like illegal in some way, I think. Because
I think they've waived that now.
Did they? Because I would I always did that, like selling my T-shirts after shows. I would sell them for $20, but I'm like, if you want to use your card, it's $21.
Yeah.
And nobody gave a shit. But I remember a couple different people telling me like I should rephrase that or something, like that was illegal to.
No, I think what that was sales tax. Like you could not imply that the sales tax was waived. I think that's the law that you're thinking.
Gotcha.
Of.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't fucking gonna pay taxes on you.
So let me ask you guys this: is that there was a, when you hear, and this happened, and I'm not going to name names, but there was a Des Moines TV anchor who would talk about mental illness, and he would always say, "Hey, break the stigma." Do you think there's this? I didn't always know how to interpret that, because when I hear that, do you guys feel the stigma of mental health is with those who suffer, or I always interpret it as like, oh, you're going to look at me weird if I open up and tell you, because I don't like the word stigma, because I'm like, I don't feel like I have a stigma. I don't.
Bill, I'll let you answer first.
I think I don't know that that's a good word necessarily either. I think for me, it's about normalizing, like I talked about before. I used to say I had a doctor's appointment, and now I'll straight up tell people I'm going to therapy.
And nobody cares, do they?
No, not now. But a lot of that has more to do with, though, it's not that they don't care. It's that they're not going to say shit to your face if they think if they think you're crazy or whatever, right? So just by virtue of saying it out loud and sort of normalizing it, whether or not they care internally or externally, because usually what it is, people are hesitating themselves to go because of whatever stigma they have in their own head. And where I'm a person that they look at as maybe stronger mentally than maybe even they are, or someone who has their shit together, and I say that I'm going to therapy, maybe then they'll go. Because the main thing that happens when it comes to, especially when it goes as far as to like suicide and things like that, those people generally don't get help, and that's why it gets that far, because they don't get help.
You know, I struggle with the suicide thing because I here I've thought about killing, and
right.
and I didn't, obviously, but I've never thought about doing that. But I would say, everybody says look for the signs. I got to be honest with you, they're never signs.
No,
I mean, it's
but
like
that makes my point exactly.
Yeah, but
you never know. So if you're open about it, maybe someone who's on the fence will go get help. They don't necessarily have to be open about it now, but maybe they'll go do it now because they know someone who.
Travis, you're spot on, because yesterday was the 16th, 17th anniversary of my nephew committing suicide. And that kid was the funnest, most lighthearted kid you had ever met in your entire life. You never would have thought that he had a care in the world. Hung himself in a basement.
Yeah, and you're like, well, didn't you see the signs? No, we didn't see the signs.
No,
if we'd have saw the signs, he wouldn't have hung himself.
Right.
I mean, well, hopefully, or we'd have tried to do something.
I mean, rarely do you hear a case of, boy, we saw this one coming. Then why didn't you do? Then that's on you. But 99% of the people are like, I had no clue. It's usually the people who you think, and I don't know. I mean, it's a tough subject, but it's one of those things where it's hard to prevent, because I think when you're that deep, you don't want to talk about that, right? I mean, nobody wants to open up and tell what the deep dark secrets.
I think the stigma. I agree with Bill. I don't think that the word is correct, but I'll give you a good example. I can't remember when he gave this rant, but Dana White, there was a video floating around where he was pretty much trashing men that are into their feelings and go to a therapist and whatever, and you should nut up, you're a man, and so on and so on. And I think that is what we're talking about when we say that's just not conducive.
That's not helping.
Not helping anybody, right?
It's
that's
the same
stigma of you get labeled as weak, I think, as a man.
Yeah, I've never once thought I was labeled as weak, but but
if you heard that guy's rant, you would think that that's what he means.
Yeah, you think that's who he's talking to you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but you see, I think all three of us, or at least I know I am, but I would assume you two are man enough to go, whatever, dude. Right? I mean,
I don't give two shits.
Yeah, yeah. That's why people always get crazy, because I always hate to say I'm offended. Nothing offends me. Nothing offends me. You could tell it now. I may not. There's a difference between being offended and not liking it, right?
Right.
But and that's the way. And people are like, how can you not be offended? Well, what was offensive? I mean,
it doesn't affect me.
And again, my buddy Ross Peterson helped me with this. Usually, if you're offended to the point where you have to go on Facebook or Twitter and say this is offensive, that's a you problem. And you probably need to take a deeper look at yourself to see why you're offended. Now, you can go, man, I did not like that.
Or it's grandstanding.
But to me, if I mean, I've been to Tijuana. I've seen the donkey shows. It wasn't offensive,
God damn! Did you really? You saw somebody fucking a donkey?
I wouldn't go back. But it's just. But you kind of go.
You didn't find it offensive, but it wasn't.
So hold on. Who was fucking the donkey? Wait, I gotta know how this.
No, it was just. This was God. It was one of those things where let's go to Tijuana.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And then you're like, oh.
a scene out of Godfather.
Oh my God. I love and I know we have this in common, Trav. I love a train wreck, man. And I will definitely stand, and that probably says something about my mentality, my mental makeup. I don't know, but I do need a different level to be entertained. Like, I need a different, like, I was watching, I think we talked about this when Heather was on here. There was a story on Vice about, I think it's in Colombia somewhere. It was like a rite of passage where, like, the 13-year-old boys fuck donkeys before they have sex with girls.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing, and they sit around and and then they had a cab driver. They got in a cab, and this cab driver took them out and fucked a donkey in front of them on camera.
Well, I mean, Bill, you've been on the Todd and Tyler show.
Yes.
So I was on the Todd and Tyler show for 14 years, right?
Yeah.
I did that show for 14 years, and one of their running bits, before they got all PC, was that 99% of farm kids had their first sexual experiences
was a goat, or a sheep or something,
So I mean, it's bestiality jokes are funny. That's they are. They're
fucking.
This is so where I usually cut in and say we need to go to our sponsor because it's always the most inopportune time.
Did you know that dolphins like have blowhole sex with each other? Like, dolphins are like humans. Like, they'll do oral, they do all this shit.
Well, not only that, but have you
How
ever
do you
seen
know that?
Because the videos are out there. They're videos.
I watched yeah.
And dolphins, like, they say the dolphin brain is like almost like the human. You ever seen the videos where dolphins like start humping humans? Like when there
was two. I watched two different stories.
I feel like we've had this conversation before, Bill and I.
We did when Heather was on. The one a lady had to jerk off a dolphin every day to get it to do all the stuff she wanted it to do. It wouldn't do anything until she jerked it off. And then a dude had like a full-on relationship because that's
weird. It's not offensive. It's just weird.
There's bestiality, and then there's what's the other word? There's bestiality is you just fuck an animal, and then there's a word for having a full-on relationship with an animal.
What was the Bobcat movie?
Sleeping Dogs Lie.
Yes.
Fuck, you're the only person. You're the only person I know. You're the only person I know. I've been trying to get people to watch that fucking movie. That movie is a perfect example of an idea sustaining something.
What is it
like? Because the movie, start to finish, isn't. Bobcat Goldthwait makes brilliant.
What is the name of the movie?
Sleeping Dogs Lie. So what it is, this couple is getting ready. This couple is getting engaged, right? And as they're getting engaged, they decide to tell each other their deepest, darkest secrets. And the dude's secret is like, him and his buddies used to jerk off on a cookie, and the first person, was it the first or the last? I think the first person to nut on the cookie had to eat the cookie after everybody nutted on it.
I forget. I've only watched the movie once, but
And then her thing was when she was like freshman in college or something, she sucked her dog's dick.
I found the trailer.
And the opening scene is that college.
Yes.
Scene.
Yes. And so the whole movie is basically him. Everything's different, and he can't get over the fact that his soon-to-be wife sucked the dog's dick. And that's like the whole movie is him trying to get around that. And it's not like, but it's just the idea of it is so good that you're in there.
I'm still watching this.
Yeah, it's not as good as like World's Greatest Dad or God Bless America. Like, it's not as good as those, but Bobcat Shakes the Clown is a fucking tremendous movie.
It is. He's not lying.
I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, you got to. That's Bobcat's first movie.
Watch Shakes first. You watch Shakes the Clown first.
Okay. All right.
It's fantastic.
Robin Williams is in Shakes. Robin Williams, speaking of mental illness, Robin Williams and Bobcat were close.
They were very close, yes. And have you seen World's Greatest Dad, Chris?
No.
See, that movie is fucking beyond brilliant. Like, people don't.
Robin
have
Williams.
You seen it, Travis?
Robin Williams. Yes. Yeah.
See, that movie is Robin Williams is a professor at this school, or a teacher, English teacher, and he wanted to be an author. And he submitted novels, whatever, to publishing companies all the time, and always got rejected. And his son went to the school and was a huge prick that nobody liked. And eventually he finds his son had autoerotic asphyxiated himself in his room. And instead of obviously having the son suffer the indignity of being found like that, he basically just said his son committed suicide. And to make it seem believable, he wrote a suicide note. Well, the suicide note goes viral. And so then he starts writing journal entries.
Because he's an author.
Yeah. And so because it's under the guise of this kid who committed suicide, it starts getting more and more famous and blah, blah, blah. But it's, it's him writing it the whole time.
See, I learned so much on this show.
But but the brilliance
That's
of
not
it,
a joke either. I mean,
right.
I learned so much on this show.
The brilliance of that idea, though, is after the kid commits suicide, when they go to school, there's signs everywhere about how much everybody will love and miss him. And everybody's like, oh, and they have grief counselors and stuff. And nobody liked him. He was a fucking prick and everybody hated him. But as soon as he died, everybody's, oh, and I remember that happening in high school. I remember a guy dying in high school that nobody, and I shouldn't say that because his friends gave a fuck about him. And I shouldn't, that's kind of a prick thing to say. But he wasn't like this popular kid. And I hardly even knew. I just knew who he was. And that was the only reason after that was that he died. But I remember people talking about him and being sad about it. And I was like, you didn't even know that motherfucker. Like, and so that's what spoke to me in that movie was like, oh, we miss you, Daniel.
That's because they want to make it about themselves.
Well, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
People want in on that thing that's a little bit bigger, Yep.
I'm going to take a quick break, and then Travis, are you good to stick around a little bit longer?
Sure. Why not? We're an hour and 10 minutes in. Why not?
I would love to talk about the Camino that Ross took and how you missed out on that and how that ties into your faith. So let's go.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that fucking thing too. Yeah, let's
get a word from our sponsor, Revelton Distilling Company, who launched their brand new bourbon over the weekend. I bought 4 bottles, and it might be the best bourbon I've ever had. So let's get a word from them. We'll come back with Travis Justice.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip, and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com.
All right, and we're back. Travis, before I ask you about the Camino, I just want to ask you if Nebraska is still a national brand.
Yeah, very much so.
Do you know what that's referring to?
Yeah, it's the last time I did a podcast with you, and you guys disagreed with me. And
no, I didn't. It was my partner who's no longer here. I just wanted to.
People don't.
You were totally right. I would just stay out of that argument.
Nebraska is a national brand. It just is, and I think CBSSports.com or something did the Blue Bloods not too long ago, and I think Nebraska was still in the top 10. And you're talking about, and now, do they need to win to even improve that? But listen, you've got what?
The money's not stopping. The money is not stopping.
The money's not stopping, and it doesn't change the fact that it's still in the top 6 in all-time wins in college football. I don't want to sound like a Nebraska fan. I respect Nebraska. I have a lot. I mean, Troy Dannon's a good friend of mine. It was really weird to have him get the Nebraska job. And Nebraska, the odd thing about this is when it comes to Nebraska, because I covered them for so long, Nebraska fans hate me. I mean, Nebraska fans hate my guts. You know what throws them off? All the former players love me. So it's like, I shouldn't say they all love me, but I have I'm with former players all the time. And I'm like, you guys hate me, but the guys that actually played the game like me. Don't you think you're a little messed up here? Right?
Yeah. I mean, doesn't that tell you something?
Yeah, but I mean, all those Huskers know that I'm an Iowa fan. They don't have a problem with it. I think you can respect good programs. Besides when they played, because I'm so close and I live there, I want Nebraska to win. I think it's kind of like, except when they play Iowa. I like when Iowa beats them, but if they win every other week, I'm happy. Though I will say, for a podcast, losing is good business. Losing is great business because your listens go through the roof. But I mean, can you imagine if Kansas wasn't good in basketball or North Carolina? I mean, don't we kind of wish that Indiana was better in basketball? Think about it. I mean, it's just you want those teams that are traditionally good to be good. I'm telling you, Iowa fans are going to have a hard time with this. And BJ Hoffman, I don't know if you guys know BJ, he's a huge Hawkeye fan. Matt Rule is a hard guy to hate. He really
he is a hard guy.
I tell you what, I hated him. I didn't have any problem hating him at Baylor. But since he's been at Nebraska, he's kind of turned me around.
Yeah, he is. He's so charismatic. He says the right things. He doesn't have an ego. But
he does seem very humble. He does seem like a humble guy.
Yeah. And so
he's doing a good job of coming off like it.
And you know what? He's recruiting like it. I mean, he's got a 5-star. I don't take much stock in that, but long answer to your question. But yes, Nebraska is a national brand.
That was just me to poke the bear in my former partner.
Yeah, at least I remember it.
I appreciate that. So you didn't get to go on to Camino. Ross got to go. It was really nice to be able to hear his experience or whatever else. You're pretty open about your Catholic faith.
We need to back that up a little bit.
Okay.
I am a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. My kids all went to Catholic school, Catholic high schools. My 2 daughters that are in college went to Catholic college. I haven't been to Mass in 3 years, Chris. I haven't. It's just, I'm one of these guys.
Now, that really surprises me because I know you do some charity work for some of the.
Here's the deal. I still MC a lot of Catholic events. I still run a website for a parish. But I go in a lot of cycles, and there's some things about the church that bother me right now, which people would believe. I left my church cathedral because of some stuff that happened. I went to what I thought was going to be a great parish to be a part of, and it is, and I love the priest dearly. Matter of fact, I text the priest on a regular basis, but it's the church I left was too conservative. The church I'm now is way too liberal. Does that make sense? And so I'm trying to find this happy medium, and I struggle with it. I believe in the sacraments. I believe in, and people are going to like, I just listened to this podcast. There's no way you believe in that. Yes, I do. But I'm one of these guys that's kind of a cyclical Catholic, and that is, I'll go to Mass for
when it's most convenient.
No. I don't. I'm not a Christian Catholic. What I'll do is I'll go all in. I won't miss Mass on a Sunday for like 3 years, and then I skip for 3 years, right? Because it's just one of those things where
you burn yourself out, maybe.
No, it's just stuff starts playing with your brain. I let the rosary to me is still one of the greatest prayers out there. I think Ross experienced the rosary. I got him a rosary to go on the Camino. And I know he said the rosary, I think, every single day. Now, he's not going to convert, but I think he saw the power of the meditation that happens in that. But I wouldn't say I'm the most. I'm Catholic, but it's probably not as good as I should be.
I bring it up because I have a good friend of mine that I go to church with. We're both Knights of Columbus. We don't go all the time, but we go to Mass regularly. And he said to me how much he was intrigued about the Camino and Ross's story and how he thought he might want to go do that.
And the guys who went over, here's how it happened. My buddy and I, who I travel to Italy quite a bit, I do a Tuscany podcast with, he's like, hey, we're doing the Camino. And I said, okay. And Ross was going through his divorce and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, I'm going to invite somebody. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah. So I invited Ross. I said, Ross, and I hit him at the right time. I mean, life was probably really bad for Ross at that point. And I said, hey, here's the Camino de Santiago. We're not going to take the French route. We're going to do the Portugal route. It's flatter. You're going to go walk. It's basically a walk for about 200 miles where you can be by yourself, be with your friends, but it's just to kind of find yourself. And he jumped right on. And I thought Ross was going to back out, right? I was the one who backed out, which was really weird. And it happened because just so much was happening in my life, and the fact that I'd been in Italy in March. My daughter was graduating college, and then 2 weeks later, my daughter's getting married. Well, first of all, the cash flow is a little limited at that point. But being gone for 3 weeks and then turning around, being gone for another week for my daughter's graduation, being gone for another week for my daughter's wedding just wasn't going to add up in my work life. So I made the hard call. I remember when I made the decision. My kids were mad at me. My kids really wanted me to go on the Camino. I just told my wife, I said, now's not the right time. I feel it. And I called Ross and I said, hey, I'm not going to go, but I still want you to go. He goes, I'm going. And if you ask Ross today, he'll tell you it was meant to be this way. I never had any FOMO, the fear of missing out. When they were there, I never once thought, God, I wish I was there. I knew from the day they took off to the day they got back, I was not supposed to be there for some reason. And I think Ross got I think of the four men that were there, I believe that Ross got the most out of the Camino. You had some that just wanted to go look at every church. And to me, that's not a religious experience. Well, it's not even called religion.
That was more of a tourist
thing. It's more of a tourist thing. And it's not even a religious experience. It's probably more of a spiritual experience. I think you have to look at it that way. He went to Fatima. He got to do a lot of cool things. But I also think he got to meet people. Ross had never left Polk County. When you spend most of your life in Polk County, then you're exposed to this, and you meet all these people, and you realize that everybody else on this walk is there for a reason. That's why you two, and I'll do it someday. And I was asking my wife, I go, do you want to do it with me? And she goes, maybe. But she goes, I think you should do it by yourself. And I go, that would be intriguing. I'd be a little scared. Because I always like a crutch, right? You're going to walk 200 miles in Portugal.
Something familiar.
Yeah, but I'll do it someday. I do believe that, whether that's the French route or if it's it's something I'll do. But I really believe it was, here I'm getting philosophical, spiritual, and religious. I do believe it was God telling me, Ross needs to do this. It's his time. If you just go there with him, and Ross and I even talk about, we're going to be doing a show the whole time, right? We're just going to be, one up at each other, slapstick and doing that. So I'm glad he got to do it. Have you guys ever watched the movie The Way? It's with Martin Sheen and
Emilio Estevez. Right?
Yeah.
Ross told me about it.
Yeah, it's a good description of The Way, and it's a good movie. I encourage people to watch it, but it's. Hey, I heard you talking about a men's retreat earlier.
Yeah.
Are you coming over to the Cloisters on the Platte?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Have you ever heard of the Cloisters?
I have not heard of it. No.
So look up cloistersontheplatte.com. It's owned by the Ricketts family, who owns the Chicago Cubs, who started TD Ameritrade. What is it again? Cloisters what? Cloisters on the Platte, and it is a retreat center. It's free. Now they do ask for a Goodwill donation. You're staying in 5-star luxury, but it's a silent retreat over 3 days. When I say silent, I mean you go to study, you go to confession, you go to mass. Now it's open to everybody, but they do women one weekend and men the next. I think Chris, if you're into retreats, Bill wouldn't fit in there. When he comes to Omaha, he goes to see Colleen and then goes to a sports bar with Willie and smokes cigarettes and eats chicken wings. So,
I went to this retreat right before I became Catholic when I was going through RCIA.
Oh, so you're a convert. You're a conservative dude.
So I've helped put on the retreat. I've given a witness probably every year. My witness has changed significantly from the first time that I gave it to the last time. But this last one in February, I think, was the one that finally snapped me out of a lot of things. I went to confession, and I'm being completely honest with you. I bawled for probably a half an hour afterwards. Called my wife and told her what a terrible husband I was. And I've had some demons, and I've yet to give in to those demons since.
Okay, are your demons chemical? And what I mean by that, I mean, no. We brought it up. So is yours trauma like most people?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
And addiction.
Drugs, alcohol, what?
No.
Sex?
Food?
I would say, yeah. Food is probably one, but yeah, I mean, pornography, things like that were a trouble for me. And I'm not saying that it's never going to happen again.
Fuck that, dude. Get the fucking flashlight and the VR headset.
But I'm being honest when I say,
no, I know.
I think something really finally snapped with me that night.
Yeah, you know, I'm not saying to wrap this up, but I do say this. This is a simplistic maybe way of mental illness, but the only people who can deal with it is yourself. That's why you really have to make a conscious effort to say, fuck it, I'm done with this, right? I mean, you have to, because I watch people online. I think social media makes more people depressed because all they do is get on there and talk about how bad their life is. And I think they're just looking for likes, clicks, and comments. I'm like, stop it, right? I mean, you can't get better unless you really want to get better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, sooner or later,
it speaks exactly to what I'm talking about.
And don't get me wrong, I understand, and I'm talking about probably more with the traumatic stuff and the learned behavior. I get the chemical imbalances stuff, and that's there's stuff you can't do about that. But when it comes to people who have suffered trauma, like myself or Chris, maybe yourself, you sooner or later you just got to take ownership. You got to say, hey, I got to get better, or it's not going to get. If I don't lead the charge, and whether that's starting by going to therapy or making little changes in your life. But you can't sit there and bitch about it the whole time because it just becomes repetitive. And I know that's people may not like to hear that, but that's what's worked for me. I just had to say, screw it. I'm not going around my dad. I'm going to try to be the best dad I can be. I'm going to make sure I raise my kids and be the best husband I can be. And it took me a while to get there, but I realized I had to take ownership.
I'm going to look
Were
at
your wife's parents around?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they weren't deprived of the grandparent experience.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. Travis, I appreciate you coming on, taking time out. Congratulations to your daughter for graduating and for the wedding.
Yeah, the wedding. I got to give a speech, man. I'm a little nervous. I keep practicing and I keep bawling.
Don't bawl. Yeah. See, this is the fucking thing. This is where people are fucking stupid. This is what drives me nuts.
Yeah, like, Travis, you're stupid.
I've done. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I've done several eulogies. I've done like 3 eulogies at funerals, right? I this past year when my sister got inducted into the Hall of Fame at my high school, I inducted her, like I introduced her, and I am not. Ross will tell you. I emceed an event where Ross was the keynote speaker, and when Ross specifically asked me to come and MC it and introduce him, and I cried when I introduced Ross. I am not capable of publicly telling people how much I love someone or something without getting emotional, and people will always say afterwards, like I did the eulogy at my grandma's funeral. I cried through the whole thing, but you do things to make sure you're coherent, but you're emotional through the thing. And then people are like, oh, I couldn't do it. I'd cry. Who gives a fuck if you cry? Cry.
That's the problem, Bill, is that I'm not coherent when I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I lose it.
And you have to gather yourself, and it can take longer than it should.
The weird thing is I don't cry. The only time, and my wife will tell you this, the only time I cry is at my kids' events. So like when I was at New Orleans last week, I bawled. When I go to Owen's concerts, I sit there and weep because I'm so proud. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm Paul Rhodes, man. I'm so proud.
Well, it's the only time in your life, though. Up until you had children, you never took pride in someone else's milestone.
No,
ever.
and that's not me living vicariously through my kids. I'm like,
no,
oh my God, look what you've accomplished.
Yeah,
you just love them that much.
Yeah. It really is that. And I don't know if sometimes I don't know if they understand that. I think they think I'm, oh, Dad, stop it, whatever. But
they'll understand it when they get older.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
They will. My son's the first time he wrestled, like had a big like wrestling event, like he had a great night, and like there were 80 people there to see him, and like they were chanting his name, and like finally his star, shined. And I was so happy that he got to experience that moment. And I was a mess afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, and so like, yeah, I mean, that's just the only time up until you have kids, it's just, you never I remember playing, I'd be playing quarterback while, we're playing football with neighborhood kids, and I'd throw my son a little bit better passes.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what dads do.
You just,
that's why I coach Little League, so my kid could hit cleanup.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Bill. I'll let you finish up.
Well, I just wanted before, and like this Camino thing, Ross told me all about it, and it sounds. I mean, it sounds like even if I went on it, I'm sure I'd get something out of it.
I think you would.
I'm not a religious person.
I don't think you have to be religious.
Yeah.
You don't, and that's the thing is people are, oh, it's Catholic. Well, no, there's a lot of non-Catholics that walk it. You got to remember most of that area of Europe is Catholic, right? I mean, Italy, Spain, Portugal, you're going to run into a lot of Catholicism, but it really is for everybody. But you don't have, you can find your way. You can get a little, it's okay to go out there, and it might be the best therapy you've ever had. Right, is meeting people and talking, going,
sure.
Why are you on the Camino? Oh, because when you meet a stranger and you're never going to see him again, you tend to open up a little bit more. You don't really have it. Yeah. Then you go, okay, well, here's my story, and then I just struggle. Like it's almost like I'm always on this internal spiritual journey. I struggle with religion as a whole, just like different. Yep. Have you found Jesus? What's your job in the church? Do whatever you tell me, Sergeant.
I think there's a difference between religion and spirituality, though.
Well, what I'm talking about, though, is like, and I brought this up before, but like I just watched, was it Love Wins on Netflix about the cult where the chick fucking turned blue and like everybody was fun. I don't know, some cult, and like this chick was dead in her bed for like 2 weeks, and the cops come and they're all walking around like she's gonna wake up and this is gonna happen, and like they all believed it. I mean, you could see it. They believed this shit, and you're sitting here going, how do these people get so far gone? Like, how does your mind believe this? Dude. And then I look at stuff like the Camino has this thing called a golden year, right? Where you're absolved of all your sins. Like, to me, that's the same kind of shit. And that's why it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard for me.
As a Catholic, I always like general absolution. Yeah, I didn't have to go in the confessional. It's like,
absolutely.
Hey, there's too many people.
What a great loophole.
There's too many people here tonight. We're going to do general absolution,
Sweet.
And only on this podcast can we start with Sleeping Dogs Lie and end up talking about Catholicism. I mean,
yeah,
no, we talked about Oculus porn. We talked about Oculus porn at the beginning.
It's all about having a good time talking about hard things.
But at the end of the day, I think what it demonstrates is no matter how messed you up you are, you're all good people. We do bad things, and we're looking for better things, right? And we just want to be good people. And I think that's the case with most people. And
we want to feel okay about the bad things we did. And God, for people, God kind of can do that where it's like, well, God forgives me. I don't need the person I wronged to forgive me.
And here I thought you were an atheist agnostic, so I didn't.
I'm agnostic. I consider myself agnostic. I'm not an atheist because I think that's just as batshit crazy.
Well, it's one of those things where you just, what's wrong with hedging your bet, right? I mean,
100%. That's what I've said. I always say I
don't believe, but
I belong to the religion. I belong to the religion and don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick, and hopefully everything will be okay.
Like that's not a bad thing either.
It's just hard for me to believe that, like, especially with a lot of the Christian religions, like they talk about God like he's a petty woman or something. Like he's got all these, like he's capable of all these petty human emotions. You know, like he's gonna smite you if you don't believe in Jesus, and all these different things. It's like. Don't you think this all-encompassing being would rise above that shit?
Here's the problem with religion, is that, and it's called people. They're human, right? I mean, at the end of the day, every religion's flawed, every single one of them. Now, that's probably something I struggle with. My wife doesn't she was raised Catholic. She doesn't go to church anymore. And I've kind of followed that. I though she's more Catholic than I am, even though she didn't go to mass. But it's, at the end of the day, religions people screw up religions. Because we're left to interpret, you can read the Bible and interpret it about 8 million different ways, right?
100%.
Yeah. So, there we go.
Like, I know someone who's an atheist, and they can quote the Bible better than anybody I know, but they only do it to be a prick.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want to be that guy either. I'm not going to begrudge someone that gives them their peace. But I envy it. I wish my brain could do it. It's just as hard as I try. I guess maybe that kind of peace just isn't for me.
Chris,
when did you become a Catholic? When did you go through RCIA?
It was 2010.
Why?
I was divorced. I was dating my now wife.
So did you get an annulment?
No, hold on. I'm giving. I did get an annulment, which was probably the best thing that I ever did, and I'll tell you why. Because it made me be completely honest with myself and what I did wrong in my first marriage. And
that's good.
I think I'm a better husband because of it.
It's not perfect, good.
Obviously, but I was honest with myself and what I did wrong in my first marriage.
Yeah.
But I went through RCIA in 2010, not because of her. I was searching for a church, and I remember going to mass. And the first time I went to mass, I was like, I understand this.
It's funny you say that, because where you and I will agree on something is, and people don't understand it, but I really do believe this. What I love about the Catholic Mass is the Catholic Mass. There's nothing more fulfilling than Mass.
Really?
Oh,
yeah. And you know what?
My God! When I went, I went to Mass one time, and I felt like I was at a cult.
But I think your head has to be in the right spot.
Yeah.
You probably went in there with some already ideas that you were not going to like it. Travis, my 60-year-old sister had never been to Mass. She came last Sunday because she's been struggling to find a church, and I invited her to come to Mass. She left and she said, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. And I said, you know what the beauty of the Mass is? You can go anywhere in the world and you will understand it.
Yep.
Because it's the same thing all the way through.
It's not a theater. It's not, thumping music. It's not
right.
It's very solid. Hey,
all right, I'm gonna drop Bill out of the. I'm gonna drop Bill out.
Bill, I'll tell you what. One of the greatest things I've ever been to. There's an abbey.
Gregorian chant's pretty badass.
It's badass, dude. And if you go to, there's an abbey up on the top of the hill in Florence, where twice a day they do Gregorian chants, and the monks are cloistered. They're behind the altar. You don't get to see them, but all you do is hear them. And it's very therapeutic, man.
I bet it's cool. I bet that's really cool.
I will tell you what I'm jealous of, Travis, are your fish fries over there. Every year when you talk about those fish fries and how amazing they are, I can't even get our parish to serve beer.
Fish fries here, they're like fish fry tours. There are buses that will go on fish fry tours, go to a different place. Fish fries over here, not Wisconsin.
In Omaha?
Oh, yeah.
Well, my wife grew up in Harlan, and I hear all about
she's a
Westphalia. Huh? I hear all about Westphalia parish picnics.
So did she grow up in Westphalia, Panama, Portsmouth?
She grew up in Harlan, but a lot of her family were from Westphalia.
So you tell
shout out to the Buck Snort. I did a show at the Buck Snort in Harlan.
Yes.
Tell your wife I was married in Portsmouth. So I was that's part of the Harlan community, the boroughs there. The Harlan wouldn't be as good as it was if it wasn't for all those farm kids. So
was it a Catholic wedding?
Oh, absolutely. But
I see. I've been lucky enough. I haven't had to go to a Catholic.
But wedding. My daughter who went to Catholic grade school, went to Catholic high school, went to Catholic college, is getting married next week. It's an outdoor wedding. It's going to take about 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's the ideal. Get to the party.
Is it cheaper?
I don't know.
Just for future reference, I got to know.
We'll probably drop close to $20,000 on this thing.
Yeah, I didn't have to tell me that. Well,
but you know what?
Up the bills with that in the basement.
But it's tent rental. It's. I mean, Brooks.
It's a lot.
I mean, Chris Mahari's costing me money. I'm going with the best photographer I can find. I got Brooks Reynolds and JR's catering. They're going all the way over to Muscatine to cater this thing. So
Brooks,
you know what? I'm trying to be a good dad, right? We're trying to.
Well, you got to do it. Yeah, I mean, you got to do.
Yeah. What am I going to say? No. And we're and I would say we're doing it on the cheap, believe it or not. I mean, we've not. Yeah. I mean, but you know what? I'm gonna die someday. That's what people forget. You're going to die. You don't.
And you can't take it with you.
You know what?
Take it with you.
My dad.
And it's your job. It's your job to raise your children to be capable to not need you to leave them shit.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. My dad always said you never saw a U-Haul behind a hearse. So
yeah.
Might as well spend it all.
Because my dad my dad talks about that right now, like what's going to be left, and like I'm like, Dad, all three of your kids are fine. None of us need money from you at all.
Oh, so, you just tell me you want 1%.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Just give me 1%,
Travis. The 1% podcast. That's what you should do.
That's right.
Give me 1%. What is 1% though? I mean, is it what was it, like a couple $100? What was 1%?
What was it? I'm trying to think what it was.
Like, what was it, like the entire estate, and they just had to like somehow mathematically put a dollar amount on it?
I think my oldest got all over 100. I ended up getting like $2,000 or something. $2,000.
I mean, it was $2,000 you didn't have before that day.
Sure. You go ahead and sell yourself that.
Well, okay, we're gonna wrap up here.
Travis, we've been on so long. I've gone through one. I got to put another Zin in my mouth.
No, we're getting off here. I gotta cut Bill off. This is where I cut Bill off.
Yeah, he does. We'll go
Travis, I really do appreciate you coming on and giving us.
No problem, man.
Time. So
anytime you want me to come on, let me know.
And love you in the morning. And
thank you.
And I won't say go Hawks because I can't do that. But you got a little beat up on Twitter today. Did you see that?
I did.
Yeah, Morning Rush got beat up on a little bit on Twitter today.
I believe it or not, I
don't. Because you're a bunch of Hawk homers. You don't talk about the Cyclones enough.
It's funny because
I actually defended you today. By the way,
well,
I just
it's funny.
I actually defended
just to let you know. Here's another thing about Cyclone fans. All my texts with coaches and people in athletic departments are with Cyclones. that I was just talking to Bill Fenley before I came on. It was like, it's like I grew up in.
Everybody always thinks you're. How many Cyclone fans or how many Hawkeye fans will tell you that you're Cyclone homers?
None.
Oh, none? Really? None of them do?
No. I didn't.
Because usually you guys get it from both ends. I always.
Yeah, somebody named Jack Trice Maffey or something. He even pulled your clip from your show and played it.
What did I say?
It was you and Ross talking about how Iowa State would still go to games even though you're going to get relegated or some bullshit. I don't know. I just told the guy.
Oh, the relegation. If we did relegation.
I think you might be going a little hard at these guys. That's not exactly what they said. So.
Yeah, I don't.
It was probably meant as a compliment. Like the fans
I just want credit that I stuck up for you. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Attaboy. Attaboy. All right,
I'm not above sucking up, Travis. I'm not above it. So
yeah, he's fucking eating all kinds. You can stop eating crow now. Now you're just starting to.
I'm trying to be a nice guy. Fuck off, Bill. All right. Okay.
I just can't stand watching you grovel like this. It's heartbreaking.
Chris, don't feel bad. This guy texts me every fucking morning, hoping that I'll read his text on the air.
Oh,
and he
that is exactly my thought every time. Is like, oh, I bet.
Oh God.
You know what's funny is you know how many times I've texted them like right before I got out of the car and couldn't even hear if they read it, but wondered if they read it.
He went back, listened to the podcast, see if he got mentioned.
I just do it like I'll call in, like if I have the time to wait. Like you never know, like if they're and so I'll just send this text, and if they want to read it, they can read it. If not, then don't. I don't care either way.
I've called before, and then they've gone to a break, and I'm like, "Fuck, I gotta go into my office.
Exactly.
I gotta hang up now." So that's okay.
100%. Well, and I called Murph and Andy, and I couldn't stay on and wait, and then fucking Lucas tells them I was talking about how disappointed I was or some shit. And didn't say any of that. They were talking about how shitty Unfrosted was, and I actually enjoyed it.
Unfrosted was a good movie.
I liked it. Yeah. You got to watch it through a different lens. It's not Seinfeld. It's dumb. It's like Mars Attacks or something.
Dude,
like
oh my God, Mars Attacks is amazing.
It's like dumb on purpose.
When the Mad Men bit came on, I laughed my ass off.
Well, and I think Kyle Dunnigan steals it. Like I think he's the best character when he's doing Walter Cronkite and Johnny Carson.
And Hugh Grant did a great job too.
Yeah, he was great. Like it's campy. It's like, for lack of a better way of putting it, because this sounds like a cop out, but it's dumb on purpose. It's a style of movie.
What I thought was interesting, and I know we got to wrap up because I got to take a piss because I've had like a bottle of water here. Was at the end, if you watch the whole thing, I'm going to give something away here. The girl who represents Post, right? Did you watch all the way through the credits?
I don't remember if I did or not.
So they were going through like stuff. She actually built Mar-a-Lago. And they're like, at the end, they're like, Mar-a-Lago, true story. Like, she did Mar-a-Lago where Trump lives now.
Oh my God.
Actually, true story.
That is fucking hilarious. No, I thought it was a fun, campy, just dumb movie. Like, it was just fun. You can't watch it. If you're like a diehard Seinfeld fan, then you're not going to like it.
Yeah. If that's what I'm not a diehard. I'm not
either.
Yeah. So.
All right,
Travis, we're gonna wrap up here. Travis, thank you so much.
Love you. I'll text you on the air tomorrow.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. You can call
Billy, thanks as always. Great conversation. Yep. Check out all the rest of the podcasts on the Three Beards Media Network. Thanks to Andrew Downs for the sponsorship, Revelton Distilling Company, and with that, we are out of here.